Time is 9:05. We're gonna open up our work session. Please silence and shut off your cell phones. If you like, please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, first item on our list is we have someone here today that we want to give some special recognition to. Sharon, would you like to come up here? Billy, would you like to come up here as well?
Sure.
It's for you. Shortest signature, but we'll get him later.
Congratulations and thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Brad wasn't able to be here, but Commissioner Winters wanted me to pass along that he appreciates all of your years of service. It's difficult to find employees with the same kind of dedication that you have, and he wishes you the best. And then I wanted to say, I appreciate all of your hard work over the past 14 years. Congratulations on your retirement. It won't be the same without you. We really appreciate you.
One more, just in case someone would like. Okay, thank you so much.
It's a real pleasure. Hey, Ralph.
Good. How are you? Good.
I have something for you. I have something for your travels too.
Oh, thank you. Well, congratulations, Sharon. Thank you. Have a good day. Gonna miss you. Yeah. Well, that.
Our next item on the list is actually timed for 9:15.
So I didn't know if you wanted to continue the first discussion.
I was thinking about that, Commissioner Alderson, right, with maybe going through some of the other items on the list that are timed. Yeah, I'm thinking about the OHA agreements. I'm thinking I wanna just get those off the table.
Give me 30 seconds.
Go for it. We have a recess. So I think the first one that we have on here is Judy Clark's Fifth Amendment to the Oregon Health Authority Agreement. I think that's number 818. Actually, I'm not seeing that one, Melanie.
It's for emergency preparedness and other cover sheets and documentation. So,
If you wanna give us a summary on that, yeah, I got it.
so it's just changing the funding for the emergency preparedness for public health. It's changing the amount in $1,500 for an increase of $39,411 per year.
Okay.
Positive increase.
Alright. I think it's got the cover sheet. Return statement, yeah. I think the next sheet over will show you kind of some of the general elements. It's agreement 159818. Yeah, I'm fine with this. It's not like we can really do much. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept agreement 159818 from the Oregon Health Authority.
I'll second that motion. Motion's been made and seconded. Any objections, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. second item is Third Amendment. It's number 159169. This is the Third Amendment, not the Fourth. And this one again is just transferring money from, and it's decreasing about $13,000 from the non-residential mental health treatment to mental health block grant, which is kind of an interesting transfer, but it's still the same amount of money, but it's moving it over into the block grant. I never did hear back from anyone on this. Did you get any on this? This is actually one that it's fairly regular, but my concern with it actually was if they're moving it from their typical account and their expenditures on the non-residential mental health treatment over to the block grant, my concern with it is if that block grant is actually competitive and whether or not I have no familiarity with how OHA does this. So I'm actually curious if we can table this discussion, and if Commissioner Albertson, if you're all right with tabling this for another meeting in the future.
I have these all, not to interrupt, sorry, I have these scheduled for action tomorrow.
You
So
do?
I can follow up with Trace and I can address your questions.
Excellent. If we do that, we'll have them.
You wanna do it on the third and the fourth amendment? And then
The Fourth Amendment is another item, but we'll just have this for action tomorrow, the Third Amendment. But my only issue with it was the transfer of those dollars, that $13,000 decrease from the mental health fund. And it's the same amount over into the block grant fund, but I don't have any understanding of how they move those funds around and over into the grant. Is there an application that has to be followed with gaining access to those dollars? Is it competitive? Is someone else going to be able to have access to those? I'm unsure of, so I wanted to get some clarity on that before we. The second one is the Fourth Amendment, same number. Let's see. It shows an increase of about $20,000 to Lake County. This is on problem gambling, and another increase. It looks like. No, it was a $20,000 total increase. So we can have that for action tomorrow, or we can move on it now and just get it off the plate. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the Fourth Amendment 159169.
Motion's been made, seconded.
So is the Third Amendment and the Fourth Amendment, they're both under the same number?
They're both under the same number, but
We have a
Different
contract with OHA for mental health and public health, so they'll have the same number
Okay, got it.
for
right,
depending on which.
correct. Alright, motion's been made, seconded. Any further discussion, objections? All in favor say aye. Aye, motion carries. Alright, it's pretty close to 9:15, so we'll just move back up to our timed items. Would our esteemed guests from the Red Cross be willing to step up to the mic if you guys wanna pull up an extra chair? You'd be welcome to come up and give a presentation.
How much time do we have on the agenda, just so I can?
Oh, you have a half hour.
Oh, okay, we can cover that.
Excellent.
Awesome. Materials here, I don't know if I'll take all of the half an hour that you have, but, thank you, Melanie, for making the arrangements for us to speak with you today. Commissioners, my name is Carissa Heddick, and I'm the Executive Director for the Red Cross Chapter for Southwest Oregon. And Caitlin here is one of our volunteer specialists who does volunteer recruitment within Southern Oregon as well. And it's important for the Red Cross to meet with elected officials because when we interface in times of disaster, Whether it's wildfires or it's floods or earthquakes. The Red Cross is a nonprofit organization, and we are one of the main organizations that respond, and we provide food and shelter for people. That's our primary role. So recently I deployed down to the Kincaid fire that happened in Sonoma, and they had learned their lessons from the Tubbs fire that happened 2 years earlier. And the Red Cross worked with the communities to be more prepared, and as a result, more people came into evacuation shelters with prepare bags, and then we also set up a total of 15 shelters within Sonoma County. So the Red Cross is a pretty amazing organization. When you see it on a major disaster front, we're able to ramp up with the local volunteers, and then we're able to also bring in people from across the division or across the country to kind of backfill and support the local efforts. So one of the reasons why we're here in Lake County is to let you know about the services of the Red Cross and what we do day to day. We respond to over 60,000 disasters across the country, and those aren't 60,000 wildfires and hurricanes and tornadoes, because that would be a mess, but really they're single family home fires. And within Lake County, there were 4 home fires in the last 18 months. And what the main service that the Red Cross is able to do is come in, and when the fire chiefs contact the Red Cross, because fire chiefs respond to the fires, they call us on a disaster hotline. And so they call this 800 number that goes to our dispatcher, kind of that covers the whole state, and they call on volunteers that are in the counties or the cities where that fire took place. And one of the things that we're out here to do yesterday and today, and we'll be coming back in mid-January, is our plea is that we can recruit some Red Cross volunteers here in Lake County. So when those fires occurred, we had volunteers that came from Willamette that drove the hour and a half to meet with the residents here. And our hope is that we could find, in our perfect world, like an ideal husband and wife couple. Because in other kind of smaller communities that we have throughout the state, we have several anchor-based volunteers that can get trained in disaster response. And they would be given the client assistance cards, because when we meet with families, we upload the funds onto this client with debit card. And they're able to pay for hotels and food and clothing and really take care of their basic needs that they have. And if they lost any medication in the fire, we have mental disaster health services nurses that are able to call in orders to the pharmacies. We can do replacement medication and replacement medical supplies. So that way we help people get back on their feet again. So we're a bridge over the river for about 2 or 3 days. So that's, and what's pretty amazing is like the Red Cross is the only organization that does this. I mean, we respond to 2 to 3 home fires a day across our whole region, which is most of Oregon, and then 6 counties in Southwest Washington. And the Red Cross, we do things consistently across the whole country. So what we do in Oregon is what we do in Utah and New Jersey. We all do the same things consistently and provide equitable services no matter where you are across the country. And our training is also the same way. So another opportunity, and we spoke with some people yesterday when we were doing our visits, is that we not only do we need local volunteers that are here in Lakeview, because it's much easier to be a 5-minute drive down the road rather than an hour and a half standing in the cold, or maybe tomorrow because the roads are bad. What we really like to do is find out, like, preferably names of people that could be retired. And on average, I mean, there's about 2 fires a year that happen in Lake County. There may be more that happen. And so we just want to be able to be responsive to those needs. Another thing that we started to do, because we are so active in fire responses, what we started to do nationwide is do a home fire campaign. So we are installing free smoke alarms. And we've installed almost 2 million smoke alarms across the country in the last 2 years, about 25,000 in Oregon. And we are up to about 652 documented saved lives. So we have to account for the number of smoke alarms we install per address, how many people live there, whether they're senior citizens or kids or veterans. And then when a home fire happens, it could either be 6 months later or 3 years later, we can cross-reference what that address was because we know that we would have installed smoke alarms. And this is really, this is truly life-saving. And not only do we provide working smoke alarms, and people don't realize that smoke alarms have life expectancies. They're really only good. The ones that we are currently on the wall are only good for about 5 to 7 years. And the ones that we're replacing have 10-year lithium batteries. And we have a partnership with the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office. And so half of our alarms come from the Marshal's Office and the other half comes from a grant that we got from the Red Cross. And so these are like $10 a piece. And when you're looking at fire departments that have limited budgets, that fire departments used to be able to put up smoke alarms because that's their business, is to prevent fires and injury and death. It really takes a budgetary hit. And so when you can rely on the Red Cross that has this service, and we're more than happy to do it, this is a great opportunity. So we have a digital flyer that I can send to Melanie, and that way you can promote this across. Of course, at the same time, it comes along to, we also need some community partners that can help us do these smoke alarms. So people can call the number, they can email, they can get on the website and request it. And then what we generally do is we have what's called strike teams, because these are houses that are like onesies and twosies and threesies kind of scattered throughout. And so we'll have a group of partners that come together. And we've done this throughout the state in larger campaigns called Sound the Alarm. And it's kind of like our 3-week flag waving, our equivalent to Race for the Cure, where we really shed awareness on home fire safety. And we'll go into a community and install about 400 smoke alarms in one day. About 150 homes, we've done it. I've ran with a lot of people. And this could be something that like the 4-H youth could be involved in. It could be the civic programs that can be involved in. Community neighbors that will come across and say, we just want to be Red Cross for a day, and we put on some vests and we can go do this. It could be large scale events like that, or it could just be, putting up smoke alarms in 5 houses. So we also have opportunities where we work with MOUs with local fire departments. So we train the fire departments, we give them smoke alarms, we give them our forms, and then they go and they can install the smoke alarms. And that way, it doesn't have to be always Red Cross volunteers doing it, but we can rely on the fire department partners who can do that for us. And they just have to send us the forms and make sure that they count for the alarms, because we have to be accountable for that. So the other thing is we encourage that people get out of their house within 2 minutes. So unless you're burning bacon and toast and your smoke alarm goes off and you don't know why, these smoke alarms, they have a hush button on it, so you can hush it if you're burning toast and bacon. If not, we recommend that you get out of the house within 2 minutes. And then also having a fire escape plan. So can you open up all your windows? Can you open up all your doors? And then having that meeting spot outside your house. So to know that you have to meet at the mailbox or out the light pole. Because people will oftentimes go out the back door and the front door, and they're like, well, where's my husband, where's my kid? And they go running back into a burning house. And that's not what we want to do. So we talk about the home fire escape plans, and we have 7 lives saved within Oregon. We have them in Madras, Pendleton, and Portland. Those are the areas where we've had, rural communities that have had, homes saved, through this campaign. Another important thing that the Red Cross, we respond, we manage 40% of the nation's blood supply. So we all want hospital on the shelf when we need it. So whoever's had cancer has had blood, who's ever been in trauma accidents has had blood, preemie babies, leukemia patients, everyone has needed blood like that. So about every 2 months, the Red Cross, we host blood drives there at the hospital. And the hospital was very gracious. And about 3 years ago, they put up $10,000 to help us buy a new bloodmobile that was able to service Willamette Lake and Deschutes County to have that mobile blood drive. And the important thing about blood is that you can donate every 56 days. So about every 2 months, like clockwork, we're out here and we collect blood. And the great thing of the way the Red Cross works is that once you donate blood, about 3 weeks later, you get an email to say that your blood went to this hospital in this city. So you actually know it goes someplace and not just off into the oblivion. And this past summer, we had a critical shortage of blood. We had between a 1 to 3 day supply of blood, depending on the type of blood that it was. So in the summertime is always critical for us because college and high schools, we get 20% of our blood supply between 16 and 24-year-olds. So when you're a junior, senior in high school, up through those college, that 6-year gap is when we get 20% of the blood. So when they're in school, we can collect 100 units, or in the case of Oregon State University, we collect 900 units in 1 week, 3 times a year. But when they're not in session, they go on vacation and no one thinks about donating blood. And people go on vacation and then the numbers drop. So we had, depending on 1 to 3 days supply of blood, and I had met with a retired cardiac surgeon in Medford. He was at Asante, and he says, people will come in, like let's say dad is scheduled for his triple bypass, it's scheduled, it's on the books, and the family's waiting in the hospital, the surgery room's all booked, the staff all shows up, surgeon walks in, and the very first question he asks is the blood here? And if the blood's not there, the surgery's not gonna happen until the blood shows up. And so it's critical that we have people who regularly donate blood. 35% of 35 out of 100 people are eligible to give blood, which means that they haven't traveled, to countries where they weren't in the military during mad cow disease, or their medications aren't proper. So 35 out of 100 people can donate blood without those deferrals. 3% actually do. So our national blood supply is running on 3% of the population. So we just want to make it kind of really educate how important it is to give blood when the opportunity is there, because we want to have blood on the shelf. And it's not just Red Cross. It's all the other blood collection groups. Sometimes we have to get blood from other groups to fulfill our contracts with hospitals, because they are expecting this amount of blood on the shelf, and we have to supply that one way or another. And so we have to, rely on our partners for it. So, the collection of blood is really important. Also, going back to the Red Cross, one of our other lines of service is the services to the armed forces. And that's actually our original line of service. So if you know about the founder of the Red Cross, Clara Barton, Angel of the Battlefield, Civil War. About 20 years after the Civil War, she was traveling through Europe and she caught wind of the Red Cross movement that was taking place. Then she brought the Red Cross values and principles back to the American Red Cross. And so our 5 lines of service is disaster services, in services in the armed forces, international, blood, and health and safety. Those are our lines of service. And so with the services in the armed forces, for those members here in Lake County that have a son or daughter that's in the military, let's say they're in Korea, and dad has a heart attack and he's at the Lakeview Community Hospital. So the mom, she can call him and text him and say, hey, your dad's in the hospital, but he's in Korea, and the military is like, yeah, right, you're not going home. What the military will say is, we need a Red Cross message, and that's exactly what they say. So the mom calls the Red Cross calls the hospital, we talk to the attending nurse and physician, we get a diagnosis or prognosis to recommend the service member to come home, we type up the message, and then it's sent electronically to command, and as soon as they get it, because there's Red Cross bases, the Red Cross people deploy overseas, they're downrange, and they set up satellite phones when people are on the active front. They do these as part of our services, is connecting down, service members with their families. And so we are able to deliver that message, and that's how they're able to come home. So people, Caitlin and I have got into meetings and people say, the Red Cross brought my brother home, or the Red Cross, got me home when my wife was having a baby, or whatever it was. And that's one of our key lines of service. And then of course, we always go back to having, first aid CPR. Many people have always, swimming class, babysitting classes. You can take a babysitting class online, and that's really geared towards 11 to 15-year-olds within that time period. You can also take first aid CPR classes. Unfortunately, the nearest class is in Medford, which is kind of a little ways away. I know how hard that is, but that is something where it is a 2-year certification, and you can take your classes online and then do hands-on instruction there, or just take the 6.5-hour class. And so we have scheduled classes, unfortunately, kind of in those major hubs like Medford and Eugene and Portland and places, but efficiency wise of kind of the model that where it goes to. But kind of really going back to, what our hope is that we can foster, is, volunteer recruitment. And of course, we all want volunteers to kind of step up, but we have a very similar situation where we have several volunteer couples in Florence, which is right along the coast, and they're trained, in disaster response. And so what we've done before, and we've done this in Coos Bay, and we've done this in Florence, where we have a disaster program manager, his name is Joel, and right now he's meeting with the fire chief. And what he's done is that he's gone to do like a workshop over a weekend. And so if we have like 5 or 6 people that were trained, that were interested in becoming a volunteer and just learning the basics of like how Red Cross works and filling out the paperwork and doing, the casework and all of that we need to do, he put together a workshop where he can do that over the course of a Saturday and Sunday, and then kind of do like mock simulations of going to a fire and actually interviewing. And we have Red Cross volunteers who come in and kind of do that role playing with them, so they understand the process of it. And then they get certified to be a Red Cross worker. We've done this in Coos Bay about 4 months ago, and about a week later, those Coos Bay people actually went to a fire, and they actually had another one on Sunday. And so it's rather than having volunteers come in from other counties, we want to be able to provide that service local, especially with people who know people. You know everybody in town. And so it's much better to have, your neighbors being trained to do this. And it's not like, we can't plan. Some people get trained and say, oh, but I've never called enough. Well, that's kind of a good thing. But we can't anticipate when fires are going to happen. Another opportunity along with that is that you can deploy on national disasters. So I went to the Paradise Fire last year. I went to Hurricane Harvey 2 years ago. And a lot of the training is done online. And so you register to become a Red Cross volunteer. Everything starts through redcross.org. You type in your address, type in your zip code, therefore we know you're in Lake County. You do have to pass a felony background check. That kind of is an important detail. Especially when you're wearing the Red Cross, emblem here. So you have to pass the background check. And then, like when I went to Hurricane Harvey, I took online classes. I had to take like food handling, safety, and a couple other things, just a couple hours. And the Red Cross, they fly you to the disaster. You stay in the shelters. Oftentimes they're staff shelters, so you're sleeping in a cot next to your 300 best friends, all Red Cross volunteers from around the country. It's an awesome experience. I mean, I've been on 3 national jobs, and if you want to be the nicest of humankind, you go on a national job and you meet the nicest people who are all there. You can do warehousing, you can do feeding, you can do sheltering, you can do transportation and moving vehicles around, you can do client casework, you can do damage assessment, like all of these different functions, and it's a 2-week deployment. So, if there was a time of year where, most farmers is constant, and my family was in South Dakota, so I know what farm country's like, and go there on spring break and fall break and visit all the aunts and uncles and drive tractors, and I did that. I know farming is year round, but this is a really good opportunity if you do want to have that escape, and if you see it on the news and people say, what do I want to do to help? One lady that stood out to me, and she was a farm wife in Illinois, and she had been married to her husband for 40 years, and in Illinois, in Midwest, people drive everywhere. I mean, family lives 50 miles away, and you drive everywhere. And when Hurricane Harvey happened, she saw it on the news, and she says, I want to go. And she'd only been married, she'd only traveled with her husband, never traveled with anybody else. She went to a local Red Cross chapter. She got trained in the most fundamental, basic things that she had to do in order to get deployed. And she flew on her first airplane down to Texas. And not only that, she traveled without her husband. She got down there, she stayed in a staff shelter, and then she also got trained to drive our next generation ERV, like our high-tech emergency response vehicle, like the nicer models. It's like it's built on a Mercedes, thing. She was able to drive that, and she deployed for 2 weeks. And it was just an amazing opportunity. Not only that, but I ran into another volunteer who knew her, and she's gone out 3 other times since. So this is a really great opportunity to kind of travel to help people, to get trained, and of course, the more you go off and experience things, you come back to your home base that much more prepared. And then the other thing is, all about disaster preparedness. So I brought some prepare guys here. This is a really good manual. It talks about, which I'm sure you all know, having the safety radius, the trees not on your property, having a supply kit for up to 2 weeks. There's a lot of things in here that there's like a checklist where you can go through, check. Like we all have rolls of duct tape, and we all have extra, lamps, and put it into a separate container like a go kit, where if you do have to evacuate when the sheriff is knocking on your door, saying, the fire's coming down the ridge, you gotta get out of here, your bug out bag, you load it in your truck and you're gone. But having this all done early, and it's something that you just don't want to think about, but it's something that if you just take small little steps at a time. And in here is also a calendar where not everyone can just go off and buy $600 worth of disaster equipment, like having solar lights, emergency radios, freeze-dried food, extra food, propane, for generators. Not everyone has that kind of thing, but what you can do is kind of follow the schedule, and you can buy it incrementally. You can do it every 2 weeks or every month, but the whole point is taking a first step and doing small bits at a time. I built my disaster kit 3 years ago, and I had extra points on a credit card that I never really used because they don't give me good flight deals anymore, so I just cashed it out on Amazon. And so I bought like $600 worth of stuff, like the solar, the cell phone chargers in case the power goes out. One thing that we had done during the winter storm that affected Douglas County is we went to a small little town of Elkton. They were cut off for 4 days. If you've driven through between, Southern Wind and Reedsport and, Drain, they were cut off. It took the county 4 days to chainsaw their way into town. Yeah. And it was just, it was like cut lines all the way there, and they didn't have power for 3.5 weeks. But what the Red Cross did is we worked with commissioners of Douglas County, and they were able to send a repair person out to get the generator started at high school. So that way it had heat and it had showers, and we were able to feed people. So we fed 140 people at night. Kind of like the same town. Lakeview is bigger, but we fed 140 people dinner every night. 6 people stayed over in the shelters because we just put an extra blanket on home. But then they came in, they did puzzles, they had breakfast, they socialized with everybody. And the other thing is, after 3.5 weeks of no work and no income, finances get kind of tight, and so the Red Cross was able to provide those meals and snacks and things to help kind of get it back to normal, and they were the nicest community there. So really what we just wanted to kind of come out, we'll be coming back in mid-January, kind of doing our second round of visits. And so Caitlin is with Volunteer Services. So people who are interested, she can leave her card because she's really that entry point into volunteer recruitment. I'm the director for Red Cross for the Southwest, and so I'm kind of represent all 5 lines of service. And then Joel King is our disaster program manager, and so he's the one who interfaces directly with Daniel and with the fire chiefs, and to do that preparedness, looking at like what shelter surveys are, what facilities in Lake County could be used as shelters. People always say, well, what shelter am I supposed to go to when something happens? And it really is just dependent. When we had a really bad snowstorm that happened in Eugene about 3 years ago, it cut off power to about 14,000 people. And we had shelter agreements all over town, but the county said, we want a shelter here at this middle school up on the South Hills where most people were affected. And so that's where we opened up that shelter. And so having those in place and uploaded into the shelter, there's a database where they can pull all that stuff from, having those things current and having the partners. Later today, I'll be meeting with the city officials to kind of let them know what the Red Cross is. But we just really wanted to, hopefully, under 5 minutes.
Yeah, you're good.
So anyway, it was just a pleasure. I loved, when we've been out to Lake County before, and just the nicest people, truly. We've eaten in your restaurants and stayed in your hotels, and just you walk across the street, people stop. It's just so nice to be here. So
Excellent.
thank you for having such a wonderful town.
Thank you so much, yeah. Did you have any questions?
Yeah, a couple. So I actually called the Red Cross yesterday because I got my text to give blood, and there's a problem with, it's saying that the Elks Lodge where they always have it is closed off, or it's only closed off for Elks members to deliver blood. So I called the gal at the Red Cross, and she was supposed to,
Oh, Rebecca?
I don't
Oh,
know,
yeah. Okay.
but they're supposed to try to change that. So
Okay.
because when you put your zip code in, it's not registering it, or when you put your city that you're in, it's not registering.
Okay.
So, have you talked to the OSU extension?
We did. We stopped in and met with Samantha. Most of the staff is gone on the training this whole week, so Samantha was holding down the fort. But she told me she was retired, and she's like, "You look like a nice Red Cross volunteer." So then I tried to recruit her. She's like, "I'll think about that." But yes, I did, and I did want to kind of reach out, especially for the youth, to help out with the home fire campaign.
Right.
And another program that we stopped off at the school district also yesterday. One thing we also have that's geared towards youth between 3rd and 5th graders is what's called the pillowcase program, and we teach kids about preparedness between 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. So obviously we work through the schools when we do that, but.
And then you've already said that you're in contact with the fire departments here and Daniel with OEM, so.
And yeah,
That's
Joel's
through Joel
meeting
King.
with them right now.
Yeah, okay, excellent, awesome.
I met Daniel about 2 years ago when I passed through, yeah. And then he had to run off on the call,
As usual.
as usual.
So,
That's all I have. Thank you.
Don't be strangers.
no, we won't be. It's good to actually meet you and get some ideas. Do you guys have cards and everything where we can kind of stay in touch with you?
Yep.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, most of my questions were actually answered during the presentation, so it was good.
Okay, do we have your card? Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Okay, next item on the list. We've got Bob Squires, line protection fees.
Yes.
Yeah, come on up.
Pardon me?
Yeah, come on up. Right up to the mic.
Well, guess I don't get there. There's
Oh, thank you so much.
something to read. One for Brad and one for you. Okay, yeah, you're right there.
No, you're fine.
Okay. I'm Bob Squires, and I guess I'm here today to let you guys know, I think there's a crime going on here in Lake County, and I just wanted to expose it. Or it's what I feel is a crime. And it's really a crime to Lake County and to the many landowners of Lake County. And first, I'll just describe what I think is a crime, just to play lawyer, I guess. If I was to come in and promise you a service, and you were to pay me, and then I did nothing, in my opinion, that would be a crime. And so, from there, I'll go to some of this. What I'm getting to is the Webster Dictionary says a fee is a charge for a service. And again, this is directed toward the fees I get charged by Oregon Department of Forestry, ODF. And I'm saying that this fee, I did not receive any service for my fees that I get charged. And it is a fee, ORS 526 says landowners will be assessed a fee by ODF. Okay, so every year I get a tax from Lake County. The tax is something I can directly come to you and complain about, or vote against you if you don't like what I say. But a fee is just charged for a service. ODF I have no control of. Those people set a fee based on 7 people sitting on a board. And really only one is a rancher on that board. And he has a lot of other interests, a lot of nonprofits, so I don't know, I'm a rancher and I don't have a lot of nonprofits, so I don't know really where his ranching begins and his nonprofits end. So anyhow, 7 people set a fee for my land. None of them are from Klamath or Lake County. And this year, I don't know, if you take a look at my second attachment, you'll see just one of my tax bills. And that tax bill is for 10 acres in the middle of nowhere. Sagebrush, not a tree on it. And ODF charges me 86% of that tax bill for that 10 acres. And I think that's pretty ridiculous. The total of all my taxes that I get to ODF are in fees that you force me to do, because otherwise my land goes up for auction, is 66%. Now, of that 66%, your assessor's office is forced to do all that. Okay, and the ODF fees for Lake County, we give them $580,000 a year, what we did last year. How much do we get from them? 0. And how many acres does ODF own in Lake County? Probably less than 1. It seems to me if we are required to do that much enforcement fee collection, that they should be paying probably a half or more of our assessor's office fees. And these fees are just kind of made up fees, I'll be honest with you. Now let's go to, let me see which one's my next one. The next one is 14 counties in Oregon had a lawsuit against ODF. That lawsuit was number 2, my example is, it was over $1 billion.
It was actually, I think, 1.6 billion.
Okay, great.
Totally.
I mean, but we didn't join that,
No,
and we should have.
there's
Because
been a lot of debate on that.
one of the things ODF does is they promise lot, deliver nothing. And it's because of probably the rules. I mean, do you know what ODF has said to deliver to us for what they charge us for? Fire protection is the first one. Fire prevention is the second. And that is helping private people burn slash piles, thin trees, and that kind of thing they don't do. But that is their second responsibility, fire protection, fire prevention. Well, anyhow, in that lawsuit, one of the reasons for that lawsuit is ODF promises to do things and then they don't come through with it. And in that article, you can read that in the second column at the very bottom, it even states they have poor management. And then right next to it says they charge for things they don't do anymore. And it's probably because they've over-promised. which is like me saying I'll give you a service and then I don't give it to you after I have to pay for it. And this service, they just keep increasing it every year. Now let's go to my other two examples.
Do they increase it every year? Have they been increasing it
The
every
next two
year?
examples. July of 18, they said, well, this year Klamath Lake are gonna be charged 44 cents per acre. You know, that's not on top of other fees, but, okay, so they just made that number up, I think. Now let's go to the next example. This year, it went to 60 cents and 40 cents, 45 cents, 60.45 cents. That could have been a typo, and yet you're still gonna charge me. That could have been $6. I mean, there's no justification for anything here. Zero justification, they increased my taxes by 50%.
That's on grazing land.
I don't care where it is.
Well, I was just noticing that they
My taxes went up
differ
that much.
between Klamath Lake timber and Klamath Lake grazing.
Yeah.
So it was,
But those two numbers are on the same line, aren't they?
$1.59 on grazing.
yeah. I mean, I see it's gone up on both.
Well, a lot of my land, all my land is grazed. So it went up on me. And, you know, in that lawsuit, one of the reasons is because it came out that they have no itemized expenses. You give them money, it's spent, and they do not have to tell you where it was spent. They cannot tell you. And I guess the next thing I'm gonna go to, maybe I'll go to it now, is the very last page. What I've included for you is, it's on the internet, it's 100 pages long, so I didn't copy everything, I ran out of ink, I ran out of paper. It's the Ways and Means presentation of February 2019 of the budget for ODF. And if you guys would take the time, it's pretty discouraging to read. It says what all their duties are supposed to be, and as I've said, it's fire prevention, or it's fire, protection when there's a wildlife fire, but it's also prevention. And I'm keying in on that, because I think that's probably what I pay for since I have never had a fire. And that 10 acres, I don't think they'd ever find before it was all burned up anyhow. There's no access. And the first one is, you're both fairly new, so this isn't a tax, it's a fee. I want to stress that. This is a service they're promised. So that was, I think, on your, I don't know if I gave that page.
Yeah.
But, the second big thing, and I don't know how much I copied because I was running out of ink, but prevention is a key second thing that they are supposed to be doing for us. And understanding and improving forest health. It's not just fighting it. The fires that are existing, and I know these guys who fight fires, heck, I wouldn't go into some of these fires, they're so hot. But their agency, per the governor, I guess, or someone, said that they will fight the fires, they will protect the land, they will prevent fires, they will have clean water, clean air, probably lower global warming. This agency's probably been tasked with everything that they cannot deliver. And yet my taxes go up and I get nothing for it. I have quite a few acres. I try and maintain a lot of the forest. I thin trees by myself. I build slash piles. I have 2 bonfires a year probably just to get rid of those. I've requested ODF backup, a tender. I'm qualified on a structure engine. I think I could drive a little truck with a tank on it. But I can't get that, and I realize that. I'm not part of them. although they are tasked for helping me prevent fires, a big part of their task, their second most important task. And yet they keep increasing fees when I do the work, and they don't give any help to me at all. Once again, to me, that is a crime, the way I feel about it. And a crime against you guys for making you mandatorily collect that fee.
And like you say, the Lake County gets zero for doing it. No
Right.
administrative costs, nothing.
No, it goes straight.
And the fact that they went in and actually subdivided our parcels. I have parcels that were subdivided when I couldn't subdivide them. They came in and subdivided them, so they had more parcels, which is a standard parcel fee, surcharge for patrolling. And in that 97 pages, I never saw one thing that their job was to patrol. You know, I did see prevention, I did see protection, no patrol. And yet, they have a patrol charge that I get hit with. I think it's time, since they're not doing their job and they haven't fulfilled what they've said they do, either to, as a county, to lawsuit them, or to go back to, you know, these boundaries keep changing, or they change them. Go back to the original boundaries and the original fees and not increase anything. I mean, they're not producing. You wouldn't keep hiring me to consult if I never produced and I kept increasing your fee. So why do we do that with Oregon Department of Forestry? I mean, they're a good forest fire prevention or fighters. But yet, the prevention part, in my case, I haven't seen anything yet. That's most of my taxes go to that. And they're increased every year. And I have no say. I've gone to the Attorney General, but he can't do anything against another department because it's an equal branch. So the only way to fight this is through you guys. I can't do it alone. And I know this might not go anywhere. I just wanted to get this made public. But it's very interesting if you read the Ways and Means. They cannot do it. In fact, I do have another page that I didn't read, and it's about engaging homeowners and non-industrial forest owners. And that's not in your package.
Okay.
You'll have to go
I
to, I think,
didn't see
page
that.
77. But in that, they help people, or they're tasked with helping them prevent forest fires, like thinning and burning slash logs. And in it says that this part is not funded. This task that they promised to do is an unfunded task. So guess why I get no help? I mean, I wouldn't support me either if it wasn't funded. But then why am I funding them? I mean, and then, you know, I don't know if I gave you the last two, but then in this report, you do need to read it, please. The end of the report is a letter from I think an overseer of the Department of Forestry. And their expenses are so bad, like they double expense stuff. It comes out on 3 or 4 items. It shows that they either are fraudulently padding their expenses, or they're not very smart. If I did that with my taxes, or with you guys, you'd probably have me in jail, and I think I should be. I mean, I'm not against paying taxes that I owe. I would like to think that we donate to a lot of causes here in Lake County, but this was one I'm getting tired of donating to. And just, I come in front of the board probably 3 or 4 years, so I'll see you in 3 or 4 years. And I just want to
I
thank you
think
for
you'll
your time.
probably see us before then.
Yeah, you'll probably see us sooner. Yeah, and we'll definitely be going over this. I'm gonna try and reach out to Dustin, at ODF and even Dennis and see if Dennis wants to go over and have a discussion with us about this.
What can they
Because this
do?
is actually.
They have no funds. I mean, but then why should you be forcing me to pay it? I mean, I don't think he has any control over it.
It's actually surprising how ground up some of the ODF actually can be sometimes. So I like to at least have the conversation with our local
Oh,
guys first.
I welcome that, but I mean, I just don't see, what our local can do when it's an unfunded activity that they promise, that the state's promise, not them.
I know the ODF has helped some of the RFPAs on the north end of the county a lot, trying to get going and everything, so that they can actually be able to protect. A lot of the ranchers and farmers up there will have the ability to protect their areas. But this is the first time I've actually had an actual verbal complaint of any kind, even of any kind, about this. I mean,
I've never met you, so maybe that's why.
That's right. So, never had you come into my office and talk to me about this, so.
You've heard me complain about it.
Well, you complained about it, but you don't count it out like it. So,
Why you can meet people by complaining?
right, I understand,
Complaining to them.
but I like to hear if there's any issues at all in Lake County, I wanna know about it. And especially if there's conflict or lack of service of something that we're already being mandated to charge a fee for, that we're not getting anything for, and then our public is saying they're not getting anything for. I definitely wanna follow up on that. And so,
I think you should, I think the proof is in that February Ways and Means,
the February 2019,
97 pages on the internet.
just some light.
And this is your contact number on the letter right here.
Yes, it is.
Excellent. Thank
We'll
you.
be in touch.
I appreciate your time.
And we may actually have future meetings as well, so, and if we do, we'll try and make sure you know about it.
I hope so. I mean, I don't think this office, our ODF can do anything. I'm just like tired of all these increased fees.
Right.
And you should be for 60, a fee should be on our tax thing. They should get their money from the general fund and not from our taxes.
Agreed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan, that's all. It's a pleasure to have met you.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah. Thanks. Nice to meet you.
I want to say a few words.
Public comments anytime.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ron Johnson, Christmas Valley. I'm too old. I've seen it happen too many times. Let's quit telling the public or the private landowner how to spend his money and do stuff. Leave him alone. Make a suggestion. Back off of this fines and fees stuff. Global warming has been proved wrong. They politically correct. It's now global climate change. Let's go back to when we logged. We didn't have any weather problems. We had clean air. We had clean water. I suggest, my sarcasm, that we save the government $4 billion a year. Let's get rid of the Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, and give that property back to the counties and let us run it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Any other public comment?
Where are you from? Thank you.
With that, our next item on the list is Francine Winters on the vaping update. I know she's not due for another 10 minutes. I don't really have too much else on the list aside from a planning commission applicant. I would like to move that up, being that it's on time. Darwin, get you out of here. Yeah, all right.
So I'll just give you a quick update, I did give you guys the mail, hand that out to you guys, the little summary report. Jim Walls, longtime resident of Lake County and 40 years career serving in the public. Last 18 years was with LCRI, the county renewable initiative and a resource initiative. And Tim's graciously, applied to be on our planning commission, which is we have 3 vacancies coming up at the end of the year, and all 3 of those members can't make it to this meeting, so I was really needing a quorum tonight. That's when in Christmas Valley. So this kind of worked out well that you got its application in time, that I was able to poll the planning commission members, send them all this application and this cover letter, and got a confirmed, recommendation to have you guys appoint Jim Walls to serve on our planning commission for a 4-year term in December 31st of 2023. So it's my recommendation as well to appoint him, and I've already talked to Jim. He's said he'd be glad to make it to the meeting tonight if you guys so appoint him today. So,
Good.
So that's all I have. The last 2 positions we'll continue to advertise for. They're a central county position and a North Lake position, and I know Allison Parks is trying to help recruit somebody up north, and it's been advertising in the papers up there, and we'll continue to tell them to put it in the papers.
Excellent. Okay, so, but there's no other applicants that.
No other
have come in yet?
applicants at this time, yeah, and it's been
And there's
on
still,
our planning commission page of the website for over a month and a half now, and it's been in the local examiner for 4 straight weeks, I believe now. So yeah, just not getting a whole lot of interest, but that's been unfortunately the common practice of a lot of volunteer groups. Just getting less and less people volunteering or staying on boards longer. Currently, my planning commission is average time on the planning commission is probably less than 3 years, maybe even closer to less than 2 years. Which is a concern for me because then I got to retrain people often. So,
Right.
like this year we'll have 3 new members, so it's pretty tough on a 7-member board to have that much turnover.
Right.
So, must be me.
no comment.
No
Right.
comment.
Just giving you our,
I'll let you
so,
get back to it.
but so there are, with the appointment of Jim, if we appoint him, there'll still be 2 vacancies,
Yeah,
correct?
2 vacancies, yeah.
Okay. Alright, good, well, I sure hope somebody
Let me just
steps up.
recognize real quick as your time item is still a little bit out.
Yeah.
I do wanna recognize Ginger Casto, who's been our chair, I believe, for the last 4 years. Been doing a wonderful job. I hate to see her go, but she is moving on from the planning commission. Long as her and Justin Farrell, Justin's also moving on, and then Jalen Shuffler, who used to be also on the budget committee, and this year has kind of pulled back from a few of these things. But appreciate all 3 of those. They've done a tremendous job, and unfortunately, those are my 3 longest serving members. They're all leaving me.
I know. Yeah. Okay. Well, no worries, and hopefully somebody else will step up and, I'm hoping at some point. Alright, with that, I would, just because this item has an action consideration, I'll entertain a motion to move on this today.
I'll make a motion to accept Jim Wall's application for the
I'll second that motion. Yeah, for the planning commission board. I'll second that motion to appoint Jim Walls to the planning commission. Thank you.
And just for the record, it's position 3.
Any further discussion? Alright, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Excellent. I'll let Jim know. See him on the road here in a little bit.
Alright, before you take off, Darwin,
Sure.
any further department updates?
We're still moving. I'll give you a little bit of one. So the FSET process is still moving forward on the Obsidian Solar Center, which is the 4,000 megawatt or 4,000 acre, 400 megawatt project in Christmas Valley, Fort Rock area. There was a public meeting held at the high school up mid last month, and then there'll be more public meetings coming up. for that. There are 2 pending appeals of the State Energy Board of Appeals that are also on some photovoltaic solar projects by city renewables as well. So
No update on those.
no update on those. There probably will be a date set very shortly to those cases to be heard, and I do intend to be in say about those to help represent the county and Jim Wells, Jim Bailey will, as legal counsel, may decide to join me there as well. So
Okay.
other than that, things are moving pretty well. Certainly hope to get a plan commission filled these last couple of positions, and then we'll be doing the training in January. But overall, I've been here almost 9 years, and this is probably the 3rd highest year for applications again. So economy seems to be helping out there, and Red Rock is moving forward, and that's obviously a planning commission decision. Commission decision long ago, but it should be well, it's pretty exciting for the community. So,
Excellent.
found a lot of complaints, so I know the discussions ongoing for working on the nuisance program. It's not currently in my department. I don't wish for it to come back to my department, but if we could figure out something, working with our partners, especially like the town, who continue to try to figure out what they're gonna do. 15,000 is all they have budgeted for a nuisance officer, code enforcement officer, but that little bit and somewhere we could pull some money would be very helpful. I know to the building department as well.
Right.
We continue to see a lot going on. The winter months make a whole lot of enforcement difficult because a lot of the nuisance properties are covered with snow, and so you don't see it as much until the spring on. You see all that stuff that's really nuisance. So,
And I am working on that.
Yeah.
And with Jennifer's gonna have a gal come down from Deschutes County. And that's gonna happen after the first of the year. She couldn't do it before that, so.
Land sale wise, usually by January I prepare the order that then we bring to you guys for the May auction. So land sale, we got I believe it was 63 properties this year, a little bit more than the 50 average that we get. There are 4 of those that have structures on them. 2 mobiles, 1 building downtown here, and then another old stick built over by the lockers. So I'm working with legal counsel to try to wrap these up and make sure that we get people. There's one that's occupied, that has been kind of occupied by a squatter, which is not pleasant. So working with Jim Bailey on that, and appreciate you guys' support and trying to get that moving quickly.
Got it.
As it can be a liability to us as we go on.
Absolutely.
And other than that, things are going well. And here to serve. If you guys need anything,
Thank you.
Sound door's always open to the public.
And so you're headed off to Crystal Valley?
Yeah, I'll be heading to Crystal Valley for a 6 o'clock planning commission meeting tonight up there.
Where do you usually have them?
So planning commission typically happens here, but when we do have applications primarily just in one location or in a general location outside here, we'll move that as written in our bylaws to do so. But we discussed at the last planning commission meeting to hold the months in which you guys meet at like Fort Rock or Silver Lake, Christmas Valley, and Paisley, I know you meet there as well. I'm trying to remember if we did summer like ever or anywhere else in the county, just those 4 I think. So we've decided that we will hold our meetings at those same locations, the same weeks that you guys hold yours.
Okay.
So which will be kind of nice because then it's a set schedule and we know, and then I can tell applicants that we're going to be in this location of these months, and then they can either hold off on their application or still drive that distance to those locations.
Excellent.
And as Allison Parks, Rudolph, who's on our planning commission, pointed out to us last month as well, that 66% of our application, I believe, were in the North Lake area. So, primarily a lot of our planning commission, applications are for that area, so it is nicer to get up there.
There's a lot of growth.
And we were a couple times. I think it'll be our 3rd time this year, up there. So we do get out of there.
That's good. Excellent. Alright, thank you, Darwin, appreciate it.
Yeah, no.
No, we're right on time. I mean, Darwin, he just like. he's-
Yeah, I looked at him like, I better stop now.
I know, you were looking at the clock, so.
Thank you guys for coming.
Okay, cool. I'm here to update and educate you guys.
Oh, no.
And boy, I need to get in because the longer we keep doing this, the more I have to say. Because we're talking about vaping. So, Victor DeNoble was a scientist for Philip Morris in the 1980s. His job was to invent a safe cigarette. I was fortunate enough to have breakfast with him. Back in the day, he was presenting to a youth retreat. And it was really an honor to talk to someone who was so dedicated to the truth, he was willing to put everything on the line. The tale of the tobacco industry's search for a safe cigarette sounds like a spy novel. From Victor's point of view, his team worked in a secret lab with blacked out windows and no numbers for their floor on the elevator. And for years they failed again and again to create this cigarette because no matter what they did, lab animals would not smoke it if it didn't have nicotine. And so eventually they found something they thought would work, but Philip Morris quashed it and wouldn't let them publish the findings because legal counsel said, well, there's two problems with it. One of them is that this proves that nicotine is addictive and therefore the FDA will want to regulate it. And the second is that by looking for a safe cigarette, you've proven that you knew that what you were selling was not safe. So they went ahead and they fired Victor and his colleagues and closed down the secret lab. But when the scientists left, they took boxes of the papers documenting their work with them. I mean, what were they going to do? It was a secret lab. Philip Morris really couldn't say anything because they couldn't admit it existed. So jump forward a couple of decades to the summer of 2019. Alarmed by the number of teens that were using vaping products, the FDA director, Scott Gottlieb, put out a statement warning the industry they needed to stop marketing to teens or he was going to completely ban all flavored products. They countered they did not market to youth and that the 15,500 unique fruit and candy flavored liquids available, including 20 unicorn flavored products with cartoon packaging, were not designed for children, they were designed for adults. And in fact, they helped adults quit smoking tobacco, which was supposed to be a really good thing. Now, the truth is that there's no reliable study to back up this claim, even though you hear it very commonly. The e-cigarette industry was actually playing Big Tobacco's theme song at that point. Vaping exploded in the public awareness in September 2019, maybe late August if you're paying attention. All eyes focused on the ever-rising count of mysterious lung illnesses and deaths, apparently connected to e-cigarette and vaping. Of course, the manufacturers and the business owners declared that the CDC was overreacting and there was no proof that vaping was responsible. The CDC began scrubbing the health records across the country for the real number of cases, and those numbers rose daily. Currently, they are 47 dead and 2,300 recognized lung illnesses. Now rewind to Victor DeNoble and his colleagues in the 1990s, now watching in frustration as Philip Morris executives lie under oath to Congress, claiming they didn't know that their product was harmful. And Victor felt like they had to do something, but they had signed a non-disclosure agreement as part of their exit strategy, and so they couldn't just go public. But they came up with a plan. They turned the boxes of evidence over to a group of lawyers whose offices were promptly burglarized, taking all of the evidence. So there was nothing they could do. Just imagine what it was like knowing this was killing people, but you couldn't do anything about it. But there was a shoebox with some pictures in it that had been set aside and not gone with the rest of the materials. Victor put a picture in an envelope without a return address, and he sent it to the FBI. He actually even went to a nearby state and sent it from there. A few days later, the FBI was at his door, and it said, "You're coming with us." Victor and his wife were put into witness protection until they testified before Congress. There was a little clever manipulation verbally in order to get past the non-disclosure agreement, but his testimony helped seal the case against big tobacco that ended in the $206 billion tobacco settlement in 1998. Now, since then, decades of resources and education have gone into reducing tobacco use, especially among teens, and increasing awareness of the public about the dangers of tobacco. The Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Act was supposed to be the next step in this process. This was signed in 2009 by President Obama, and it gave the FDA the ability to regulate manufacturing, distribution, and marketing of all tobacco products, including the then new and mostly unknown vaping products. It also included banning all flavored cigarettes, including mint and menthol, which are the most popular ones among youth. A political compromise, however, removed that piece of the regulation, so those flavors remained on the market. But creating a whole new regulating body took time. So it took till 2016 before the FDA was ready. By that time, we changed administrations, and President Trump said, kicking the can down until 2022. I don't want to do this right now. And there was an appeal, and the court said, no, you can't do that. You need to do it in 2017. But the tobacco industry and the vaping industry came up and said, we're going to appeal, and then here's all these lawsuits that they put in. So that didn't happen. 2017 came and went, no regulation. And the new date is May 2020. We'll see what happens. By 2016, when the general public really wasn't paying attention to any of this until it showed up in the headlines with the mysterious lung diseases. But even before Scott Gottlieb's warning about the rise of vaping in teens, there had been rumbling about false claims of it's safe and natural and there's no nicotine in it, which analysis proved was wrong. And alarms about the unregulated cocktails that could potentially and were being found by analysis to be in these things. There were even stories about lithium batteries exploding in pockets and in people's mouths and taking away pieces of their job. But pretty much they got lost in the news cycles. They didn't really go big. But vaping popularity was quietly growing all this time with products manufactured in lots of countries. When they tried to figure out what was making people sick, the CDC collected and reverse engineered 800 varieties of vaping liquid and the stuff that was in the devices. Because without labeling requirements, oversight, or accountability, even responsible retailers didn't know for certain what was in the packaging, no matter what they voluntarily wrote on the packaging. So popularity grew quietly, and it was pretty crazy. So here's a quote from Matthew Myers, president of the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. He says, nearly a decade after these products were first introduced, not a single e-cigarette has been reviewed for safety purposes, for addiction purposes, for youth abuse purposes, or for efficacy in helping smokers quit. In November, a few weeks after the federal government announced it would not take any action on regulating products due to the potential economic impact, the American Medical Association recommended a complete ban of all e-cigarettes and vaping products. A few states had already taken action, at least temporarily. Some countries, like India, banned it outright. China banned all online sales. Oregon's ban came out but was put on hold because it was declared by the courts to be unenforceable in that form. Massachusetts just this week passed legislation banning all vaping and e-cigarettes as well as all flavored tobaccos, including menthol and mint. Now, the only place that you can't, is the exception, is smoking bars for 21 and older. And remember when I was here a while ago, I said, this is an entry point. So if you had a smoking bar, then the next step is that they would potentially ask to have cannabis be able to smoke on premises as well. So just pointing that out. Massachusetts also put a 75% excise tax, and the goal being to make the product too expensive for you. And so that's why they did that. So some 10.8 million Americans started vaping as of last year. 25% of high school students now report vaping. This is a surge driven by the immense success of Juul, the most popular vaping product. Juul Labs grabbed a huge piece of the market, partially because they benefited by all of the stuff for e-cigarettes saying that, you know, they were healthy and they had no nicotine. The other piece was that they were really good at packaging. Their packaging was genius. But when kids surveyed, they often would say, no, they didn't smoke e-cigarettes or tobacco. But when prompted, they would, oh yeah, I Juul. They just didn't connect nicotine and tobacco and Juuling. They just didn't connect that. So what was cool about Juul for the product genius was that they looked like USB stick. They a thumb drive. And they would go and be recharged. The battery could be recharged in any computer. So they, it was like being in a secret club because the teachers didn't know and parents didn't know and a kid could actually just, you know, lean over and take a hit off a Juul, and a hit could be, and nobody would know. A hit could be as much as a cigarette. Juul comes in different varieties of how much nicotine is in each pod. A pod can contain as much nicotine as a pack of cigarettes, but it depends on the pod. So I can't make a blanket statement about that. So Dr. Karen Wilson of the American Academy of Pediatrics quotes, she says, we're seeing kids that are using 4 pods a day, the equivalent of 4 packs of cigarettes a day. That's an astounding amount of nicotine being delivered. Nicotine, like many other addictive products, you have to continue taking more and more eventually because your body gets used to it. So imagine if you have a 4-pack-a-day habit at 17. These kids are going to have a really hard time quitting. So now we have, after decades of trending downwards, we have a new generation that's addicted to nicotine, which is equal to, in strength, is as strong an addiction as heroin. Juul's idea of making vaping devices look like something else spread quickly. Devices could look like hoodie strings, right there. They could look like pens, phone cases, watches, key fobs. They even had little containers built into backpacks. But they also came under scrutiny, intense scrutiny, excuse me, for unethical practices, like making high school presentations claiming that they're anti-addiction and then promoting their product, running ad campaigns that clearly targeted teens, and of course, obviously, the fruity flavors. So in an attempt to stop the PR bleed and to stop the FDA from making a total ban of the products, Juul Labs announced they would voluntarily stop selling the fruit and candy flavors, except menthol and mint, because those are the most popular. And their CEO resigned, and they got a new CEO, former head of Philip Morris. Big Tobacco's dream of finding a safe cigarette seemed within reach. They bought a lot of stock in Juul, and they took the new kid under their wing, because they'd been here before. They knew the ropes, they knew how to navigate the complex issues about whether a project is healthy or not, how to tie up regulation, how to have studies that you pay for yourself that muddy the waters, all the while continuing to claim not to market to kids, but still doing their best to find a way to do that. So recently, the CDC did identify vitamin E acetate as the culprit in the deaths due to EVALI, which stands for, I don't know if it'll stay this way, but e-cigarette vaping use associated with lung injury. So EVALI is the new term for the lung disease. And vitamin E is approved for some food use, but not for inhaling and combustion. So they don't really know what it does. It is used as a thickener, especially in cannabis, THC-oriented products, and especially in the black market, not so much in retail. But the CDC continues to say most, not all. And as long as they do, that indicates to me that there's some research that's finding in some of the others, and that therein lies the difficulty, because retailers are like, don't ban everything, that's not fair, and we know that prohibition didn't work, just ban the dangerous products. But the problem is we don't know what's dangerous. So is vaping safe or safer for adults?
Well, if you don't know how dangerous it is,
We
how
don't.
can you dictate how safe it is?
You can't, and that's the problem. So some people say it's safer, some of the experts, it's safer than tobacco because of all the number of toxic ingredients when you light up, right? Others say no, you can't claim that because you don't know.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no evidence. So Dr. Hassan Nema led the team that performed the first double lung transplant in the US a few weeks ago. The 17-year-old vaping patient's CT scan before the surgery virtually showed he had no lungs because there was no air in them. So this is a quote from Dr. Nema. What I saw in his lungs is like nothing I've seen before, and I've been doing lung transplants for 20 years. This is an evil I haven't faced before, end quote. So regulating ingredients to protect the public is certainly a step toward restoring consumer confidence. But that's not going to come down from the federal level in the foreseeable future. It's going to be up to states, counties, and cities to decide what's best for their populations. Would banning the use of vitamin E acetate in products be enough to keep users safe? We can hope so, but we can't know. What about the effects of the microparticles on the respiratory system? Doctors are being very concerned about that. That's why the AMA declared they thought we should ban. But as far as we know, studies like Victor Nobel's just don't exist. But we can learn from the past. And Big Tobacco's past has a clear lesson for us about who we can trust when it comes to a choice between their profit and our health. Have any questions?
No.
Nope.
Mark,
Okay.
do you have anything?
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, I think we just really appreciate you doing this, Francine. and
Not a
just kind of
problem.
giving us these updates. I think it's good information, so.
And I'll get you some more. I just been very busy lately with running around Christmas Valley and down here and everything. This one I just needed to get it off my plate really now because I didn't want to come when we knew nothing. But I thought it was really important because it's changing so fast. I mean, there were 5-6 articles over the weekend on this that were just changing things. So we need to know what's going on and before you can make the decision.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Francine.
Appreciate it.
So we have quite a bit of time before our next timed item. And I'm really hesitant to go to the only other non-timed item that we have on our agenda because I believe some people thought that it wouldn't take place until after 11 sometime. So I'm thinking we'll take a recess till at least 11, about 25 minutes or so, and reconvene at 11 o'clock. We'll have Paul Anders get on the phone with the Eastern Oregon discussion, the Eastern Oregon Association of Counties. And after that, we'll go into our last item, hopefully. And kind of work our way through that. I just want to make sure that the public has every ability to be here for that discussion. So, alright. I'll recess till 11. The time is 11 o'clock. We'll come back into session. I am getting a call from Union County. Perfect. Hello?
Good morning.
Good morning, Paul. How are you? This is Commissioner Williams.
I'm good. How are you this morning?
Good. We've got Commissioner Albertson here as well. We've got you on speaker, and we've just come back into session. So, yeah, you have the floor, sir.
Good morning,
All right.
Paul.
So just a little bit of, call it history of Eastern Oregon Counties Association. Started kind of up here in the northeast corner with former Commissioner McClure, Commissioner Roberts, and then Judge Joyce in Malheur County. And part of it was that they just thought that we needed a bigger voice and more recognition on state and federal matters, mainly federal matters at that point. Since then, it's grown to 13 counties. Virtually everybody east of the Cascades is included now, and we're meeting much more often via phone and in person, because before it was like 3 or 4 times a year. And since the short time that I've been in office, we've met about 10 or 12, depending on how you count the forest meetings. I think we're an organization that's in a little bit of flux right now, moving from that, occasional meeting to fairly often. And just to give you an idea, Union County contribution ballpark is about $25,000 between our dues, our support of the administrative person, and then we haven't done it, it's on our docket for tomorrow to put in an extra $5,000 to help the socioeconomic data for the Blue Mountain Forest Plan. So clearly we're fully committed to it. One of the shifts that I see is not renewing the contract with our federal lobbyist. We met with him last summer and really were not satisfied with production. Very similar conversations to the ones that we had at AOC with the natural resources, same lobbyist. So for EOCA, that saved us approximately $9,000 a month, which I thought was pretty hefty salary. So we had some money to put towards the timber plan. We've done that. We've hired a consultant for the timber plan, and part of it is, even though your forest is not, which I think is the Fremont Wainema, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, is not currently up for adoption. It will be shortly, which is one of the reasons that the folks in Deschutes County have been so engaged, is because theirs is scheduled, the Deschutes National Forest. But we did also hire a state lobbyist, Rocky Dallum, Dallum, and he works for the Tonkin Torp LLP, and he is a full partner. I will be more than happy to send you his contact information so you can kind of look around their website. And one of his clients is the Oregon Cattlemen's Association, and clearly had a pre-existing relationship with Wallowa County Commissioner Nash. He helped me through some of the elk issues last winter, and then when we started shopping for a state lobbyist and made some calls and to folks, legislators and other lobbyists, we got the same answer pretty much from everyone, and he's going to take you guys, and B, why are you wasting any time? Sign him up before he changes his mind. So very, very well thought of, very well respected, especially on rural and agricultural and timber issues. So that's, and well, again, we're in a flux state right now. Again, a lot of things moving around, especially with their leadership for EOCA. We're looking at a due structure next year of $10,000, which I know is a lot of money. I get that. And earmarking basically half of it for federal priorities and half for state priorities. And then counties also have the opportunity, like Union County has more, clearly you have the opportunity to add more if you have a very specific subject that you want the group to focus on.
Right.
We are in the process of exploring whether EOCA is going to get involved as a friend of the court on the sage grouse decision that came out of the courts in Boise that, in a nutshell, postponed the 2019 rule implementation and maintained the 2015 implementation. Farm Bureau, Oregon Cattlemen's are getting involved as a friend of, I call a friend of the court, it's friend of the BLM to go ahead and push those newer, rules forward because it gives the producers a lot more opportunity to work with the range cons and get some grazing going on that property. And that affected, if I recall correctly, the Lakeview, the Burns, and the Vale BLM management areas.
Correct.
So, and I will also tell you I'm not that up to speed on it. I've had some conversations with Mark Bennett, and he put me in contact with Mary Ann from Oregon Farm Bureau, and we're going to kind of decide how Eastern Oregon Counties Association best fits in that picture. So I know that's kind of quick and shotgun. Questions?
Mark?
Good morning, Paul.
Morning, how are you?
Good, bud. I do appreciate that you coming on and talking to us about it. I'm definitely interested in the sage-grouse issues that we're having, and of course, all the grazing issues with the BLM and the Forest Service. So, I guess I don't really have a question. I mean,
Okay.
Now, when you mentioned Mark Bennett, I just wanted to make sure I stated for the record, Mark Bennett is Commissioner Bennett from Baker County.
Yeah.
And I want to make clear that the gentleman on the phone, Paul Anders, is also Commissioner for Union County, Commissioner Anders. Just to make sure that that's clear for the record as to
Okay.
who we're talking to on the phone here, just for the audience
Right.
and everything in the room. I just want to
Okay.
make sure that was cleared.
and Mark Bennett is kind of the lead on the sage-grouse issues.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, in the state. I think Lake County's interested in joining EOCA. We just two things, of course, with the increase to the dues from the 5,000 to the 10,000. That obviously is a substantial sum. I did
Right.
get to meet Rocky in Bend when you and I were there for the forest plan meeting.
Oh,
And,
right, that's
Yeah, that was really good. It was awesome that we were able to get Rocky to come down for that. It was an excellent opportunity to get to meet him and pose some questions to him and see what he's thinking. I think he'd be a great voice for Eastern Oregon counties.
Right.
At both the state, especially the state level, obviously, which is where
Right.
he focused. I think we're in support of this. I think it just comes down to a matter of trying to find funds.
Correct.
And then of course we'd have to take a vote and
Right.
decide on.
Well, and again, if I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't be calling in this morning, and I hope that you see the value in what we're doing. It is a bit of a direction change from the past years. Where, like I say, Union County in particular is fully committed, and part of it is I understand as a county and not that Lake County doesn't have timber, but not to maybe the degree that we do. You are have more what I would consider rangeland, and part of the beauty I think of this organization is, as we stand together, we know that we've got the backing for timber issues from Lake County, and Lake County would clearly understand that they have the backing of the other Eastern Oregon counties for
Absolutely.
range issues, if you will.
Right.
And that's what I think the strength of this organization is that and we have similar, while they may not be exact issues, they're similar issues with federal agencies and working through those to find the better solutions.
Real quickly, I'm gonna open it up to questions on the floor. Does anyone have a question? Melanie?
I do, please. When are your dues assessed? Are they on a fiscal calendar in July, or does it start in January?
At this point, we're rewriting the bylaws, so that has not been decided, but clearly if you wanted in, we could make sure that we had an opportunity for you to participate that work the best for you, especially with your budgeting. I know that in county, but I mean, I'm relatively new to this as well, but I know you can't just go, hey, I need $10,000 because of the work and the planning that goes into the budget. You just can't go raise something. So I would, well, I can't speak for all of the folks in Eastern Oregon. I think that we could make sure that we could get something that works for you.
Yeah, especially even though, you know, right now your comment earlier that Eastern Oregon counties is kind of in flux right now as an organization. And do you kind of see that being ironed out in the near future?
I suspect it will be done before the 16th of May.
Okay.
Is that the right date? Let me check my calendar real quick. I suspect it will be ironed out right around the May primary. How's
Okay.
that sound?
All right.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, right. And I think we definitely, as for Lake County, I think we definitely want to stay appraised of just the developments and how things go from here. So as you guys are kind of working out those issues, as long as we stay informed, and Mark and I have both joined some of the conference calls and tried to be part of some of the discussions, even if it's just as a listening ear, to better understand some of the issues that a lot of our other fellow Eastern Oregon counties are facing. So as we move closer to making a decision on joining the EOCA, I think we definitely want to make an educated decision on.
Okay.
On
One thing that I think I forgot to mention, I was going kind of quick there for a while, is that we will continue to house the executive assistant to do the minutes, the organization of conference calls, securing meeting rooms, keeping the website up to date, and legal notices, and just keeping everyone kind of serving as a clearinghouse for information as it comes through from the association as well. So that our plan is to have that position hired by next Wednesday. It's a quarter-time position funded by the counties and Union County in a joint agreement, and that person will be housed here. And Cinda, who I think you guys have worked with, is going back to her primary responsibility in the planning department.
Okay.
So, and to be clear, there's no lack of support on our county. We just had to get her back to full time on her, I don't want to call it real job, but her primary job. There you go.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. I think Linda's been really awesome to work with, and she's just been on top of everything. But I get it; it's just a lot of work for one person who's already serving in another capacity.
Right.
So, do you guys have a solid time frame for when you'll have someone to kind of fill those shoes, or?
We're going to try to have it hired by next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah, it went out about a week ago. I've got a couple of folks that I've worked with in the past that are either college students currently or recent graduates that are interested in it to serve in that capacity.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. I can't say who because it hasn't closed yet.
Right.
We have interest, which I was a little concerned that we would.
Okay. Good deal.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Paul, for your time.
You bet.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And if you have any questions, I think you guys all have my cell phone number, office number, or email. Let me know, and I'll do what I can to answer your questions.
Sounds good.
Thank
yeah.
you, buddy.
Right. Give our best.
You guys have a great day.
Yeah, we will give our best to your fellow commissioners, Donna and Matt, and if you talk to Mark Owens later today, tell him we said hi. So.
Will do. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. See you, Paul.
Bye.
All right. It was good. Good discussion. Next item on the list. Real quick, Judy, did you have
I'm not in a hurry if somebody else is in a hurry.
We have another item on the list, and there's only one more item left, and I'm not sure how long that's going to take.
Mine will take 2 seconds, you bet. I'll-
Okay, alright,
Thank you.
figured I'd maybe try and get that taken care of if you had.
Yeah. So mine's just an amendment.
Which amendment is this?
This is Amendment 5,
Okay,
and it's, we're getting more money, so nothing to add. We're getting, more money for our TPEP program and for our preparedness program. The preparedness program, they're giving us funding to do a continuing ed or EPI in April. But that is the time that the hospital will start Cerner training, so nobody can go to any trainings. So they've allowed us to use that extra money to buy a hood, a preparedness hood for like TB. Did you
okay.
guys get some?
I
I'll let
think,
you know
I
these two.
think we actually already approved this.
Oh, perfect. So
Yeah.
this,
Could I see real quick,
Yeah.
just to make sure and confirm that this is the correct one?
I think we did that one.
Yes,
oh,
we
look at
did.
you guys.
Yeah,
I'm
you're good to
late.
go.
All right.
No,
all
yeah,
right.
we approved it because it looks good, I mean, we're getting more money, so
Okay.
that was pretty much, it was a no-brainer for us.
All right, thank you
So,
guys.
Thank you.
Alright, thank you so much, Judy, really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Alright, thank you so much, Judy. Alright, next item and last item on our list, could we get, Jay and Ann here? I can actually run down the hall and get them real quick because they'll be making a presentation. So, I'll be right back. I'm not taking a recess, just gonna go grab like a few people.
Do you know Rocky? I've never met him.
Pretty solid.
I think he's been on for about 4 years, I think. But I know he has good relationship with Farm Bureau and some of the other people you mentioned, so.
Real quick, just so everyone knows, public comment can be at any time, just raise your hand. And so I can kind of recognize you and make sure that you can be heard. So, if you guys wanna go ahead and make the presentation and do the discussion for what you wanna do here, or kind
Sure.
of do the initial part, just kind of what we're talking about today and kind of give some better info for the public, so.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start off. As we all know, PERS is in the news with a lot of unfunded liabilities for public employers that participate in the program. What that means is the promises made to retirees are not met with the assets that are available from employers. So part of the solution is increasing that employer asset, which has been side accounts and has been available to employers for years. What's new this time is the state enacted Senate Bill 1049 this summer that set aside an employer incentive fund of $100 million. That money actually is not from settlement that I thought, it is from the lottery dollars and sports betting. So please keep betting on sports. What they did though is they set up an application process, first come, first serve, for employers to apply for these dollars. And it depends on the percentage of your unfundedness
Yeah.
on who can apply first. So we are eligible to apply just this week. They've already allowed some applications to go through with people that have a bigger gap.
Yeah.
And now it's our turn.
So as of yesterday, pretty much.
The reason I and Jay had never proposed a side account in the past is, again, it is actuarial numbers. There's so many variables. There's payrolls, there's market returns, there's a lot of things. And so with that known, it's like, okay, every biennium, we'll just pay current expenses with current revenues. Again, the reason this is different is that employer incentive fund. And what it is a 25% match. For every dollar we put in on this side account, it's a 25% match from that sports betting lottery money. We've never been offered that kind of incentive in the past. There is a cap on how far we can go up to get that 25%. So that's what's the discussion is today is we're eligible to put in 1.3 million and then the PERS 25% match is 330,000. So to me, the first question is, should we take advantage of free state money? The second question is, how do we come up with 1.3 million to pay that? So as we look at our county funding and where those dollars are available, the road reserve is one spot that we can go to. There are laws around using road dollars. They have to be used for road purposes.
Right.
Some of this liability is road purposes. They pay people, they have a PERS liability. If it is not used for road purposes, we are required to pay it back. It is a loan, it has to be on the books. Depending on the nature of the loan, it changes the years that you can pay that back. If it's for a capital purchase, it's 10 years. If it's operational in nature, you actually loan the dollars and repay it every single year. And we have done that in the past and we will continue to in the budget process.
Right.
That is law.
Yeah.
That is state law, that road dollars be used for road purposes. The interest rate that we could choose to pay back to the road reserves, it can be up for discussion. What we've done in the past to make sure that the road reserves remains whole is use the state pool rate at the time of the loan or at the time of the payment.
Yeah.
Right now, that interest rate is 2.45%. So, let me go a little bit further here
Go ahead.
and just talk about the 1.3 million that PERS is asking, or that we're eligible to fund on a side account. With their projections in our employer rates and what we would pay, we would get to 1.365 in 10 years on our PERS contribution savings. So what PERS is showing us in all that paperwork is that our rates will not increase as high as they could without this PERS side account. And we would actually have those savings within 10 years. So the proposal would be paying back those road reserve dollars with those savings. So instead of paying it to PERS, we're paying it back to ourselves. And offsetting future rate hikes with these dollars. There are several counties that are taking advantage of this program. It's been in the news. And so, again, like I said, it's the first time, we get a 25% return on our money immediately. I can't get that.
Yeah.
I can't get that in the market anywhere right now.
Yeah.
No, it's the hottest Cyber Tuesday deal we'll ever get. So that's why it seems to, it sparked our interest. It's worth a proposal and a discussion to decide if that's what we would like to do to save the county money in the future.
So what would the total savings be over a 10-year period?
It's The PERS projection, it's right here, it's $1,365,000.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of variables on our payroll, on market returns, on,
It'll be 1,365,000 over a 10-year period.
yes.
Correct.
What, do you have that broke down on, as far as the road department, what their savings will be?
So currently, if I just look at this year's payroll, the road department is 19% of our county payroll. We are paying PERS right now, we're on track this year to pay just barely over $1 million. So 19% of that, 190,000.
So they're looking at about a $20,000 a year savings. Approximately.
On their rate reduction in PERS. I'd have to actually run that number, I didn't look at that.
We're probably close. And so over a 10-year period, the road department alone, if it's around 20 grand, it'd be about $200,000 in savings. Plus their interest, which would be about $312,000. So that's, for the road department alone, that's just over $500,000
In a couple of
Yeah.
years.
in 10 years.
Yeah, so we will pay that money back. They'll still gain the interest that they would have gotten normally. And they'll benefit from that rate reduction every year in that time and in the future, so.
And there stands the argument, why would we take a loan from someone else? Because other counties are actually going out and they're creating bonds and everything else just so that they can be eligible for these funds, because not everyone is as lucky as us to actually have reserve funds in this amount to put forward as an actual upfront contribution in order to get this match.
People have bonded in the past to fund side accounts, to be
Mhm.
honest, with this employer incentive fund.
Right.
When I was looking at rules, I'm not sure that the state's allowing them to go out for bonds now.
Oh, really?
They want it to be from people that have the dollars internally.
Huh, that's interesting,
So I
because
just was
very-
reading the fine print in the
Oh.
law.
that's
But
interesting.
side accounts prior to the employer incentive fund, so prior to July of this year, some have been funded by bonds.
Uh-huh.
And so how are we paying the road department back? What's the plan?
So I think it makes sense to use the PERS savings.
Yeah.
So we basically almost maintain the internal rate.
Mhm.
And instead of paying PERS, because we're gonna have savings from them, we pay the road department back with it.
So each department
Every fund
will
in the budget.
budget that into their budget every year.
Yes.
There's about 13.4 million or 13.2 million is last time I looked in the reserve as of right now. And taking this 1.3 out, it's not going to harm the budget this year. Going forward in the next 10 years, we're hoping we're going to be paying this all back, because it's actually illegal for us. And this is one of my earlier concerns yesterday, as this has all been kind of a learning process. One of the worries was future board of commissioners come in and they just decide they're not gonna pay that back. But there's actually a legal issue with that, is because you actually can't not pay that back. Because even though in the past we've made $250,000 contribution to that reserve from our general fund, those dollars have commingled and are earmarked with other dollars that are earmarked for road purposes. So there's no way that we could borrow this money and then not pay it back.
Right.
We have to. And I'm stating that largely for the record. I know that we've kind of discussed some of this, and I went home, kind of slept on some of this last night, and trying to evaluate some of the downsides towards making this decision and moving forward with this. One of the issues I think on time-wise is, and that was something that we came in and we discussed this morning, was the fact that this only opened yesterday. And it's a first come, first served basis. So if we don't apply, those dollars could be used up because right now it opened up to us and a number of other counties, cities, and special districts to be able to go out for these dollars.
Yep.
So it is going to be highly competitive, and once those dollars are gone, they're gone. So, I mean, we'd only be getting about 330,000 out of it, compared to I believe it's 83 million that's left in the pot right now, as far as we know. We're not entirely sure how often they update that figure on the website, but as of when they opened it up, there was about 18 million that had been spent already. But this has opened up to the majority of Oregon now, and
Yep.
so it's going to
The
be
rest
very
of Oregon.
competitive. The rest of Oregon, yeah. Whereas before it was only, what was the issue when it first
was-
opened up? It was only eligible for,
It was a percentage of their unfunded actuarial liability, a higher percentage
Over
of their,
200%.
of their regular payroll.
that met the 200% or something, I think it
Yeah,
was.
there's a, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a much larger number of counties, districts, and cities, and school districts that are eligible now,
Correct. So,
as of this week. So we don't know, I mean, this money might be used up in a week, it might take, if this program's gonna be active through August, it might still have money in August, we don't know.
So we're looking at an annual PERS savings from 118,000 to 155,000 over a 10-year period.
Look at the back side of that page.
you print something on the back.
This
Back them up. Oh, this one
The
here.
new one.
Got it. All right.
And so, what, for a total of 1,365,000 practically. What is after that?
Actually, I mean, we see the benefits of this rate reduction like forevermore in the future. So even then, you're seeing, according to the PERS models, again, you're looking out a long ways, they are great with their actuarial studies, but looking out into the future, we actually would start seeing a declining rate environment, contribution rate environment, if their model holds true. And that's because tier 1 and tier 2 people are retiring.
Yeah.
You know, all the reforms that have taken place take a lot of time to actually affect our pool of money.
Right.
So there's still the tier 1, tier 2 issue, what we call tier 3 or ORBSERP. That is already kind of correcting some of the things, and then again, the reforms they passed this July are significant as well. So with all of those things in place, we should start seeing declining rates. In fact, do you have?
Yeah, we're looking probably at 7 bienniums before we start to see a reduction. I mean, they're projecting, you know, if you look at where we were last biennium, through the 6th biennium, so 12 years from now, we're almost doubling that rate, that cost.
Right.
We're at $1 million now, so it's gonna be a number that a lot of entities will not be able to deal with.
Correct.
There's gonna have to be some cuts and some decisions made there, because it's a big problem.
Correct.
We're in a lot better shape than a lot of entities. This would help us get even in better shape.
Just planning for the future and making sure that we're able to meet those obligations.
Yeah, it's kind of like Dan said, this is an investment in our, to reduce future costs.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain a little bit about this side account? Are those funds actually being expended, or are they in a trust and you're to where you have it as an asset and you're getting money from the state? I'm not sure I quite understand the side account.
And would you like
Do you want to, yeah.
to, need some more clarification?
It's not, I mean, we have an account. I mean, we have a liability, a promise to to pay retirement benefits to a group of people. So there's an actuarial calculation done that to calculate what our liability is as of today. That number is 6,000,000, some odd hundreds of thousands of dollars. They consider us to be well below that standard. That's why we're able to do this. But that money is not being expended. You got to look at it as more of we have a batch of assets here. We have an asset that's going to pay for this future liability. And right now that asset is not large enough. So money's being expended, yes, but really we're just looking at it as, do we have enough money to make good on those retirement promises? Does that make sense?
It's attached to Lake County's name. We have an account with PERS. So this side account is attached to Lake County. So it sits there in a, like he's saying, as an asset, as dollars available to pay that future liability.
Yeah, this isn't just going
But
into
we'll,
the,
Because
like next year, I mean, if this goes forward and the 1.3 is set aside, will you start dipping into that immediately? Or will you only use the 25% that's coming from the state to pay part of that PERS liability?
I think it becomes one whole, that, I mean, it becomes one batch of money, correct? And it goes towards that side account.
PERS is gonna pay those liabilities no matter what. And then they're going to charge us. They're going to make our future rates such that we have enough money to cover those liabilities. So to look at it like you're describing doesn't really, that's not how it works. They're gonna pay those promises.
It's a
But we're still
contract.
gonna have to make good on it in our assets. That may be, right now we're at a deficit. They would like to get everybody up to where there's not an unfunded actuarial liability.
Yes, sir.
What's the size of the deficit right now?
So,
1.6.
well, the total
deficit
deficit
itself.
was $6 million something.
Do you have that in?
Is that a statewide deficit or is that a Lake County deficit?
Lake County's
Lake
deficit. I don't, maybe I do. 6.59 million.
Obligation or deficit?
What they consider our unfunded actuarial liability. So it's like they're saying, they're magical mathematicians. They are saying that we need this much money to make good on these future promises. And what we have in there is $6.5 million short of that. So we're gonna see rates increase no matter what we do. We don't do anything, we're gonna see rates double.
Correct.
We can do this and take a big bite out of that and get that $329,000 match, which
Right.
is really the key to this.
Like, this doesn't get us there, but they have capped us off as to how much we can actually put forward.
Right, they want to be able to spread this money out across the state, allow as many,
We could actually contribute less to this, but 1.3 is our cap, that's our maximum.
that's our maximum, the
contribution.
minimum is 25,000, they won't allow anything less than that.
Yeah.
Another question.
Yep.
Is there any, aside from the road funds, is there any other side pool of money that the county has from which the
county can borrow in order to gain access to this $329,000?
It's pretty hard to find a whole lot of other reserve funds in county operations. Typically those, I mean, we operate on a budget and our budgets have small reserves in some departments, but nothing in this size. Road reserves, of course, have been built up over the years through past conservative efforts of other commissioners and attempting to make sure that we had funds there for a rainy day to meet the needs of our roads. And to the point where now we're standing about 13.2 million that's sitting there for that specific purpose. What is the actual cost, annual budget of the road department typically for operations? It's about
Just
4 to
under
6 million.
It's under 4.
Well, yeah, it depends on
Depends on the
number of
year.
projects that they
Yeah.
have.
And that's true,
Going
yes,
to do,
absolutely.
yeah.
And, I mean, some years are higher, some years are lower, depending on the different, I mean, even just snow events can impact that. So, I mean, right now, the reserves have enough for operations for at least 2 years, 2 to 3 years of operations.
Even
If they
get
got not
another-
another single penny in the future. I mean, if SRS, everything, if all timber receipts and everything just stopped instantaneously, the road reserves would allow us to operate for 2 to 3 years going forward. The thing is about having this pot of money in the reserves, thankfully, where other counties actually don't have it. We're not talking about taking the money, we're talking about borrowing a small amount that we can pay back over time that will actually save the road department and our county ultimately in the end more money and reduce our liability going forward. I think if our cap was higher, we might actually look at trying to increase our maximum contribution and look at what we could actually afford to put forward. And this is something that we discussed this morning, what actually is, and this would be a good discussion for the road advisory, what would be an appropriate amount to put aside for our roads, for that rainy day fund? I mean, through past efforts, we have about 13.2 million in there. But what is the appropriate amount? Should we have 2 years? Should we have 4 years? What do you want your county to do? I mean, we have a budget committee that gets together every year, we go through our budget a couple times every year, and we decide what's appropriate to put aside as we budget what's best for our county. So what would be appropriate? As we're looking forward into the future, times change. What would be best to think about as far as having a reserve there? I think it's good to have a reserve. We should, because we don't know what the future holds. And, but it might be worth having a discussion for us as well. We're sitting up here, it'd be nice to have some input from the public sometimes as to what would be appropriate for a reserve. So we have 13.2 million in there right now, we're talking about borrowing 1.3. You still have almost 12 million sitting in there. And that still gives you 2 to 3 years worth of operations. But
Not
we're
only
obviously
that,
trying
you
to ensure our
have
future.
for the road department alone, you have a $20,000 a year savings on
Correct.
on the PERS. And so, over a 10-year period, the road department alone will have about $200,000 savings on PERS, and then the $312,000 of interest. And so you're looking at $512,000 that the road department is gonna be ahead compared to what, if we don't do anything, then you're gonna have a deficit of at least that. Because our rates are gonna go up too, if we don't do this.
They would lose the savings of the,
So it'll be more than that.
Right, they would, if we didn't do anything, they would still get that interest that they would earn on that money at the state pooled rate,
Right.
2.5445.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't see the savings in the PERS rates, 200,000 plus, and we expect it to be more than that. That's a conservative estimate, I think.
Just to make sure I'm understanding clearly, is the interest rate that the county will pay the road department for the use of the money the same interest rate as the road department is making now based on the state pool rate? So
Yes, correct.
they're not making more money, but they're not losing money on interest either.
Exactly.
It'll be the same as the pool money, the
Yeah.
state pool.
So it's really just taking the money from the state pool and putting it into, say, the county's PERS account.
Correct.
And the income will be the same, or at the same rate.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we could
Not counting the savings, the $200,000 in savings that the road department will make.
Over the 10 years.
Right.
But the savings is a question mark because it depends upon the PERS actuarial.
Right, and you
You
can't
might or
predict
might not
this.
get it, you
And
know.
you can't quote, I mean, you can't predict that. We're assuming we would actually do quite well as far as on the savings on that, but
Yeah, and then our rates are gonna continue to be lower in the
Right.
future, so
correct.
that's gotta be.
You don't- yeah.
Compared to other
considered
counties that
also.
don't have this option.
As the tier one people
Yeah,
die.
and well,
As soon as-
Sorry, but that's what they do.
As
I
soon as
mean,
they retire,
That's what it-
basically that's what, yeah.
as soon as they retire, don't they become kind of in their own spot? They are not associated with our employer account
we-
anymore.
right. And
Really
so,
what we want, one, to be honest, part of the Senate Bill 1049 is allowing people to retire January 1st, 2020 and not have the hours worked limitation that has been in place. So there is an incentive for people to
to retire
retire,
early.
get out of our liability, go to the other
Yes,
side.
retire quick,
Yes.
kind of thing.
The difference on there, on this, that you guys gave me, on the 2035 and the 2037 biennium rate, the Lake County would save right at, well, just shy of $1 million on.
Yes,
And so,
it really is a future investment.
I mean, we have to think about, 10 years from now, if we're gonna save the county $1 million compared to having to pay more money on higher. So,
Absolutely. Yes, Jesse.
I have a question. Is there an expectation for the commissioners to take action on this today?
we're
No,
not gonna take action on it today,
It's,
but
yeah, it's not on our agenda, the updated agenda anyway, for an action consideration. So we probably will wait till tomorrow to take action on this, yes. Right now, we're mainly just trying to make sure that we have the conversation with the public, and if there's any questions at all, that we can kind of go through them. And if there's anything that we have to learn, I think it's prudent to wait sometimes and to make sure that we're having appropriate discussion.
Well, my question is, the roadmaster isn't here.
Right.
The road advisory committee, I think I'm the only one here
Yes, you
off
are.
of it. And I mean, it was just on whim, I was here. I remember as a kid, there was, when the schools were lacking funding, they were trying to raid the road, I shouldn't use the word raid, but they wanted to tap into the road reserves. That caused a bunch of upheaval. And like I say, from what I'm hearing, this sounds like this probably is a pretty good deal. And I'll caveat it with probably, because I've got a couple other questions, but I might not need to ask them if this is gonna be out in the future. But with that said, I think, just the way things work, without a good education or something succinct that can be put out there why this is a good deal, everyone's going to catch heat on this one. I shouldn't say that. I kind of read something on the internet that there might be something going on, but I've got so many things going on. I didn't even think about it last night. I got a call from Warner Valley's past road advisory committee member that was like, "Hey, does Jesse know about this talked to my wife, and ended up, we're coming to town, so I thought I better clear my schedule to at least be here. But it means it's kinda on short notice, and I guess after the fact, if you took action, if you can show it's a good idea, but I think there'll probably be a lot of heat brought, not understanding, but that will lead into my next question too, which I think a lot of people might bring the heat on. Okay, the state says it is illegal, or by county statute or whatever, it's illegal not to pay back the road funds. Well, we know how our state government works and stuff. What if at some point they're just like, well, we overstepped, we made a big mistake, we can't pay that back in, sorry. And maybe they can't do that,
Well,
maybe
that
they
would-
can. I just hate these words like, well, it's illegal. Illegal to whom? And can you get blood out of a turnip after the fact if it all goes
Yeah.
south?
Jesse,
You
don't
know-
hold me accountable for what future commissioners might do, but, alright, I mean, I hear you.
Yeah, I'm just
I
saying,
understand what
I'm
you're
just
saying.
trying to bring the questions, it sounds like time might be of the essence to get in on this thing. But I kinda think there might need to be some press releases, shown that maybe there's a little more, the appearance of transparency, I'm not saying it's not transparent, but where maybe more people can come get educated on it, so on and so forth, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, that's my 2 cents, coming from a road advisory.
Yeah, I spoke to a
Committee
number of the members on the road advisory this morning, actually, and I guess they've been in touch with Kevin Hawk as well, and Kevin called me, and we've been in discussion the whole time. A lot of this, of course, did just come up yesterday, as we're kind of going through it, because it didn't open, it wasn't available to us until yesterday. And so the proposal that's been brought to us by our team is because everyone that works here is trying to find what's best for the county, and they've been charged by you and us to try and find what's best for our county. That's their job. And so we're bringing these proposals together, and we're making sure that we have this discussion. I think originally there was the potential for making a decision on this today. But I think we kind of backed off on, because we wanted to make sure that we're having that discussion with the public.
And
Sorry,
we've
go ahead.
set precedent from borrowing from the road reserve, several times.
Correct, and see,
This is
I
not
was only
new.
aware of one of those times, and then you actually told me about another time that we actually, how many times have we actually done this before when we borrowed from the road reserves?
Well, I mean, I don't,
2 or 3,
at least,
at least 2?
yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so it's not a brand new idea.
Right.
It is, in fact, that's why it's in statute, it is allowed, but there's parameters of how you pay it back. It's
Right,
not up to
and-
the state to pay it back, it's actually a county responsibility,
Correct.
it's county funds.
So that paying that back would be on your commissioners at the
Yes.
time to make sure that they follow through, regardless of what the state does.
Yeah.
If the commissioners up here, if you guys have a bunch of new commissioners up here and they decide, well, we're not gonna pay that back, regardless if the state says you can or can't, or you don't have to, you can hold them accountable, because we just have to make sure that we make it clear that our intent is to make sure that that's paid back. And that is our intent as commissioners, is to pay that back to the road reserves, to make sure that that reserve is there for that rainy day. So, and then ultimately, it would be up to you guys to show up and hold your elected officials accountable if they decided that they were just going to abandon the obligation of a previous board and, or the intent of. Yes, sir.
So has it been paid back in the past?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay,
in fact, we've got a current one right now.
We got a good credit record, Dave.
right on, just checking.
So those repayments would be built into our budget next
Yes.
year.
There's one that
And it
we're
would
actually
be
currently
built
still
in.
paying off, yes.
Yes.
And that was the actual one that Kevin Hawk, when he proposed borrowing money from the reserves for the landfill purposes.
Yes.
And that was something that I learned about, of course, after I was elected, and Kevin kind of briefed me on some of that, and so, but there was a time even before that, some years ago.
The county borrowed money from the road reserve to do some technology upgrades,
Mhm.
several.
And that one's been paid off, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that one's been entirely paid off and paid back to the reserves.
So Jess, just for speaking wise, if we like had a special meeting like a week from now with the road advisory board and Kevin Hawk And these guys can collect all their data, give you a spiel, would you guys be happy with that?
I mean, I can't speak for who all might be able to show up and so on and so forth. I think that would be a good idea. I think it would be a good idea. I don't know, maybe you guys have already contacted the budget committee. I would think that it would be a good idea to have them in the loop. I think they meet every May. Usually I don't know if there's ever been a deal where they've had to be brought in on a special deal. And maybe this doesn't warrant it. I just kind of think just so everybody, knows, because I mean, on the face value, from what I heard, I was like, oh no, here we go again. And if the state goes south, which I mean, our state is in trouble. See, I thought it relied more on the state matching and the stuff, and if they just, can't do it, then we're left holding the bag. I guess that's not the way it works.
No,
On the face value, that's what I felt, and I don't wanna speak for the general public, but I think you might have a lot of people out there thinking, because a lot of times this is how things go, it might go that way, so just, get the information out there in a good, succinct, clear way might go a long ways in just easing fears and anxieties over it.
News fit to print on the internet. We'll get a good comment on it.
And good Facebook post.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, Charlie.
So, how do you feel, Ann, by waiting a week? I mean, you said we got till next August, but if this is a big thing for everybody and it's opened up, you think a week's too long?
I mean, I feel like, I would hope that even in a week, the public with the same information thinks it's a good idea too. So I don't mind at all. Running all the facts and information by the public and getting their buy-in, I would hope they would go, yeah, 25% match, that's outstanding, let's go for it. If the window closes for $330,000, well, then it closes. It's possible, because it's with the sports betting money and the lottery funding, that in the future it becomes available again. But we can only do what we can do with the information we have at the time. So, I mean, like we said, there's
I mean, I wouldn't wanna
hundreds of
push it more than a
employers.
week. My personal feeling is I think we're knocking on running out of time. But I also wanna make it perfectly clear that, and have everything out and open, so nobody has these questions that they can put on Facebook thinking it's all truth, and
Or at least incomplete.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least, yeah. I mean,
so
I'm not.
for not letting me rap on Facebook.
So what you're saying is, the Examiner comes out so long, are you gonna put it on the radio or just Examiner? Because now we're looking at dates.
Yeah, how do you notify the public to?
Right.
Well,
In time.
absolutely.
I think that's kind of
we can do
important.
what we can do. I mean, we have mass communication system that isn't up and running quite yet, and we're hoping to. But I don't really know if this would even warrant utilizing that tool in order to notify the public. We have some tools that are availability that we can try and use, and obviously the Examiner and other means. But
This meeting's on YouTube, right?
right, and ultimately, we're paid to make decisions like this. And if we make a bad decision, we make a bad decision, and the county can hold us accountable. And we're all just trying to do the best that we can. And most people in this county, they work for a living, and they can't be here every day, and we can't just do these, and having these meetings in the middle of the day make it really hard for folks to come out. I mean, we only have one member of our road advisory committee here, and one of them that I spoke to on the phone, even commented, there's no way he could make it today. He's busy, he's got work to do, so ultimately it is still in our lap to make the decision. And we have to make that decision with the best available knowledge at the time. But what's a good idea today? If it's a good idea tomorrow, it's a good idea. And I ultimately believe that this is a really good idea, but I want to make sure that we do take that, like you pointed out, Jesse, that we take that time before making the decision to iron this all out. Because even though after the fact, we could iron it out then and say, oh, this is a great decision, it's still sometimes, it can leave a bad taste in folks' mouth if we don't take that time and effort.
That's exactly what I was gonna kind of follow up with. That it kind of sounds like it's probably a slam dunk, and you can't educate after the fact. I was just like, well, you know, you hate to make people feel like they're cut out of the process, but I mean, and like what you were saying, I mean, sounds to me like if it's a slam dunk, like you said, you guys are paid to make the decision, make it, and then like as road advisory committee members and stuff, I need, you know, more of a fact sheet. I wrote down some notes and stuff, but like the people out in my area, I could say, this is why it was done.
Right.
You know, I mean, even though they could come straight to you, I'm just trying to
Right, they may just
kind
come
of
to you.
spread it out, you know, like I
That's
said.
why, if we have a week, we can have that fact sheet available to everybody that, or anybody that
But
wants
we could even probably have it ready in a day. And we could postpone making the decision. I don't know, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. We could maybe postpone making the decision on even having a special session till tomorrow. And we could kind of keep this on the agenda for tomorrow and have more discussion, and if we can sleep on it, think of how we feel tomorrow. And if it feels like we should have a special session, we can go ahead and have a special session, and we'll announce that tomorrow. If we want to wait a week and do this like next Tuesday or Wednesday or something, but we could have that discussion and see if we can get a little bit extra of those facts and stuff and print them out and everything and show what our actual plan is moving forward. One of the things that we didn't delve into too much was how we're actually going to be paying this back through some of the other departments as well, and how the other departments may have to budget to make sure that they have those dollars available to make sure that we can make those payments. Do
Right,
you
I
wanna
mean, it'll
touch on
be,
that?
like I said, every year through our budget process, we budget salaries and then the associated PERS costs with that salary. We're gonna maintain that PERS cost, even if we have savings through PERS, which we will. We're gonna maintain those same costs in the budget, but pay the road reserve back with those savings instead of paying it to the state PERS program.
Correct.
So it will be budgeted just like every salary and benefit, it's all throughout the county
But
and
it, but
funds and
it's going
departments.
to pay the loan back instead of going to PERS because we've
Exactly.
already made the contribution.
So in
Although back to us.
ideally, yeah, we're paying ourselves back. Ideally, we're kind of maintaining our costs that we're able to afford right now instead of seeing future costs and not being able to afford those. I mean, this issue is affecting people right now. Our library had to shut down services or reduce services because of their PERS costs.
Yeah.
So we are seeing this, and I don't know that the library had the available funds that we do to pay it down. So, and again, this impacts every operation the county has.
Yeah.
So the fairgrounds, the courthouse,
Right.
our building and planning, our, not just our road department, like I said, they're only 20% of our payroll. There's 80% of the budget through payroll that will see savings of
But the road department's actually coming out better than every other department
Yes,
because of this.
they
And
are.
that's what I wanna make clear to the road advisory and the road department is,
And
you're, and the public, you're actually coming out way better than any department
Yeah,
in
because
the
they'll
county.
realize the savings immediately.
Yeah.
Just from their PERS,
Reduction in
contribution.
rates.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure is, yeah. It's,
Unless they wanna pay themselves back, which,
yeah. I mean, yes.
Back to a basic question, Mark, you mentioned the savings, of 20,000 a year or 200,000 over the 10-year period and 312,000 in interest. But that interest, if I understand correctly, the discussion really is not a savings.
no,
They were gonna make that anyway.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so it's only the 200,000
Yeah.
that's a savings. Okay, correct, yeah. I wanted to clarify that myself.
But that's not counting past the 10-year part of what we're gonna save either. That's just the 10-year projection. And so there's gonna be a way bigger increase or savings after the 10-year period. So,
Maybe.
maybe. worsening that, but if we don't do anything,
We know there's going to be.
you know, the cost to the county might be to the point where we can't afford it, so.
And, yeah, I'm a millennial in this group, you don't have to tell me that I don't really care for PERS all that much, because my generation, there's never been a generation in the history of humanity that's going to inherit as much debt as my generation is about to.
Yeah, but
And
you
most
guys
of them
don't
can't
stay in
even-
a job long enough to
Right,
get
yeah.
Wow.
And most of my generation can't even balance a checkbook, so, you know, I mean, that is concerning, so.
Sorry, bud.
That's okay.
It's proven.
According to the ODF&W, you're an ancient
Or-
artifact,
or-
so. you know.
yes, that's true.
Right.
Cause I'm over 50.
That's right. No, we really wanna have this discussion and we wanna see the public at our meetings more because it gives us direction as commissioners. It gives us an idea of what the public wants and what they want us, where they wanna see their county go. It's unfortunate sometimes, I think, in our society where the only time we have a good amount and a healthy amount of communication with the public is when we're running for office. And then after we get in, no one wants to talk to us, no one sees us, and to tell you the truth, some of them don't wanna talk to us when we're running either, but
Yeah.
we really encourage this, go ahead.
So that account, the Oregon, the state,
The employer incentive fund,
yeah, the one that we're making the interest off of
we invest with the Oregon short-term fund at the state pool.
state pool. And so is that a fluctuating interest rate?
It is.
And so it could be more or less.
Yeah, so there was a suggestion, so to talk logistically how this could play out, I mean, obviously the first decision is, do we apply for this 25% match in fund a side account? The second decision is actually the terms of the loan agreement back to the road reserve. We have to, that's not up for debate, but the terms of it. Is it 10 years with the savings? Is it something less than that? And then that interest rate. Is it the state pool rate right now for the remainder of the loan, or is it vary with the state pool rate? The loan amount could also change if community corrections feels like they have dollars that they could upfront this money themselves. So there's still some discussions, like you said, on like exactly what that loan looks like. If the road department wants to pay themselves back, and you know, that's all information we'd still gather. So like, right now, it's just, do we wanna take advantage of the 25% match on this employer incentive fund? We know the road reserve has to be paid back. So that's in law. And then fine tuning that, there are, you know, we will get that done.
And that state pool, that's pretty much the highest interest rate that we're making on county money.
It's,
anyway.
yeah.
And the safest, right?
Yeah, it's very safe, it's very liquid. Yes, rates are dropping, just market-wise, all kinds of reasons. But it's hard to beat that, again, accessibility of those dollars and the safety of those, that the state invests on our behalf. And again, they invest for cities and counties and school districts statewide. They have a very high rating.
So
national.
in our loan agreement, we could say that the interest rate won't drop below 2.5%. I mean, we could state that even though the state pool
We could,
does it.
Yeah,
the loan, yes,
so we could go with the state pool rate as is. And
Or just make it 2.5, where you'd actually make a little more money, and then just keep it there.
Yeah.
And then
yeah,
that
so
would be
the road
guaranteed.
reserve would have obviously much greater savings that way on this whole program than what could, absolutely. And believe me, if I could access general fund reserves, I wouldn't hurt you, but we don't have them.
Yeah.
We,
That's a good point.
we
We don't have reserves for our general
We
fund.
do not. So the idea of, I mean, it is very prudent. I'm glad we were able to set aside those dollars for decades. And again, I wish general fund had them. We had some opportunities at different points in time with increased taxation and Ruby Pipeline. Other priorities came forward. But I would like to see a lot of our operational funds have access to reserves for opportunities like this.
Right.
For capital improvements, for matches to grants that become available.
Right.
I would like that discussion on reserve amounts to go much further than just road operations, because that's not the only thing Lake County does.
Correct. And it is something that I think our budget committee needs to be aware of, is that that's something that we would like to look at going forward, is to make sure that we have a reserve in other places besides the road reserve.
Yes.
So that we could pull on those other places to find these dollars sometimes, because a whole year is hard to plan for a whole year going forward and what you're gonna run into.
Yeah.
So, and being that we don't have those dollars at all, it is concerning. So I think that's going to be a big topic for discussion going forward. And I think I would also urge, a road advisory committee, if Jesse, if you wanna take that back to them, have a discussion. What do you guys think is prudent for a reserve for the road department? Do you think it should be 10? Do you think it should be 15? What do you think is prudent? And how many years of operation do you think would be appropriate for operations? And and how many dollars is prudent to just let sit there over a long period of time and not use it and put it to use? Whether it be for paving the other roads or working on other operations, what would they see as appropriate? And that's something that they can kind of bring back to our board, and our budget committee can kind of take into account. And yeah, for the general fund, that is something that I think would be very appropriate to look at going forward. Again, I don't believe we're probably going to make an action on this item today. This is our last item, so with that, is there any further questions? No? Okay, with that, I think we're gonna close the meeting at 12:15. We'll have our regular session tomorrow at 10.